Hello folks, and welcome back. I'm going to do another episode. It'll be reasonably short with the Nesco small batch canner. This time we're going to can potatoes, and we're going to dry can them, which is just a little bit different. So I will be back in a moment once I've gathered up everything, and we will proceed from there. Stay tuned. So here I am back, and I think that I have everything close at hand in order to be able to pull this off. So this is the small batch electric canner that I've been using, and we are finding it very useful. Some people have asked me why I decided to go to an electric canner, because they know that I have the traditional pressure canner, which I've become very familiar with over the years and used. It made sense for us because since we've moved recently, the home that we moved into has a flat top glass top stove, and I have to admit I'm a little leery about loading up a full canner full of water and jars onto the stove. I know that some stoves are rated for that, but I was a bit timid about it, and when I found this machine that would work at high altitudes, I thought I had to give it a go. So today we're just going to simply dry can some potatoes, which means we have cooked potatoes in the pantry, and all we have to do is open them up when we're ready and reheat them. We can mash them, you can serve them whole, you can put them in soups, you can do whatever you like with them, keeping in mind that they're already pre-cooked. I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of butter in each jar. You might be judging that, I don't know. Hopefully not. I'm throwing butter all over the place, it seems like. Now I'm just going to add a teaspoon of salt to each jar. Now this part's entirely up to you. You can add or not add salt to the jar. Some people that are watching their salt are quite cautious at this point, and that's perfectly okay. So there's the main ingredients. Now I thought maybe I would do a couple of these jars that have garlic cloves in them. So I will go and get those right now. So here I am back with the garlic cloves, and I'm going to put a couple in each of the jars. I decided, what the heck, let's do all of them. Now I've washed, I've peeled, and I peeled these potatoes because the skins on these were not looking very good. And you can't always tell what's under it unless you peel it. And it's best to use the freshest prime material that you can at this point. So I took the potatoes, I peeled them, I got rid of all the blemishes, then I cut them into just wedges. You could do cubes or whatever you like, but I've chosen to do the wedges. And then I put them in a sink of cold water where I let them sit for 20 minutes just to release some of the starch from the outside. And now I'm just going to fill up the jars with potatoes. These are so handy to have in your cupboard, just ready to go. It's also nice. I remember times as a child growing up, out of the blue you would get a visitor, and all Mom would do, or Grandma, would be just to open up another jar of potatoes or open up another jar of chicken, because pretty much everything they did at that point was in bottles. Now, Some might ask the reason for that was that it was because they had no refrigeration. I remember my grandmother, how excited she was when she got her first deep freeze, because then she didn't have to work in a hot kitchen all summer long getting all of her food put up into jars. I mean, she still did quite a bit in jars, but not nearly the amount she did before she got the freezer. So far this is pretty simple, right? Just fill out the jars. I got out 4. Kind of guessed at how many 4 jars would take. Pretty close. I think I have a few too many in here. Now, you don't want to, I don't want to overload the jars, because if you pack them too tight, there's no guarantee that the center will get to the desired temperature, which is one of the reasons that they don't recommend you pressure can things like sweet potatoes if you're going to puree them first. Don't puree them first, because then they're definitely not safe. I mean, I know that people have been doing it for a long time, but if you go by the food guides, they would not be safe. So that's what we have to go by. So 2 little slivers of potatoes left over. Not so bad. Now, I'm just going to wipe down the tops to make sure that they are clean. This is a good time to check them with your fingers, just to make sure you don't have any little nicks in them, because that can definitely cause the seal not to work. Another thing that you need to be cautious of, if you want to keep your jars for a long time, and they are really a big investment, so you should want to, but when you go to get things out of your jars, you hear people in there with their knife or whatever going around inside trying to clean it out. Try to do that with as much caution as you can, because glass is really fragile, and you definitely don't want to damage it, and sometimes the damage can be so small we don't see it, but when it's under 15 pounds of pressure, it definitely will show up and break your jar, and then you have a loss of food, which is not the intended purpose of this. The purpose is to be able to put food away, not so that you have it in your cupboard for any kind of situation. Actually, I'm just tightening these down, not wrenching on them, just basically finger tight. If you wrench on them, you are going to end up with jars or with lids that buckle, and the liquid will come out, and then you will lose that jar. So let's not do that. So I have my canner loaded up. I have these fancy Bernardin wide mouth jars, and only 3 will fit in this canner right now. So I will be doing 2 batches today instead of just 1. But this is how it goes. So now I've got the jars packed in. Oh, and you might have noticed that I didn't boil the lids. I just washed the jars good, because if you're going to can anything, pressure can or even water bath can anything, for over 10 minutes, then you don't have to worry about doing that. That used to be a guideline. It's not anymore. We're going to be canning these at 15 pounds pressure, because we are over 1,000 feet of altitude, and so we know that we don't have to worry about sterilizing everything. It'll be fine. Into the canner, I've just put 4 cups of water, and we do this so that there is something to build up steam inside the canner and get it ready to go. And then I'm going to close down the canner. I'm going to lock the lid into place. I'm going to make sure that my steam vent at the back is set to exhaust, because that is step 1. We have to get the steam built up inside the canner, and then we move on to step 2. So I will come around the other side and get you a little closer to the action so that you can see how this works. So here we go. We're going to start this off by going to high, And then we're going to set our time, and we're doing quarts of potatoes. So we need 40 minutes on the canner at high pressure, and we're going to hit start. Now the machine takes over, and it will go through the couple of phases that it needs to go through. And once the pot is finished, I will show you the final product. It's just pretty simple, and it's a wonderful way to have food put away in your cupboard for a rainy day, so to speak. I will be back shortly. Well, here we are back. The canner has gone to the off position. It's cooled. In fact, it's quite cool now. And this is what the finished product looked like when it comes out of the canner. This is dry canned potatoes. I put little bits of, well, cloves of garlic into the bottoms of the jars, and I don't know if you can see them, they've turned quite brown. They were sitting in the butter in the bottom, and so they have roasted as well. So when you take the potatoes out of the fridge or the cupboard, you can store them in the cupboard till you're ready to use them. You can just take the lid off and put them in the microwave till they're warm through, or you can put them out and chop them into pieces and fry them in a pan just to reheat them. They are quite soft at this point and quite easy to mash. And so if you were to reheat the whole jar and then you just mashed the whole thing, you would have garlic mashed potatoes. And one of the things that I really enjoy about dry packing potatoes in the canner is that when you pack them with liquid in them, they, even when you rinse them, they're kind of a little bit wet and kind of soggy. But when you do them dry, it's just as if you had boiled them in a pot and then poured the water off. You can use them, it's the same kind of a consistency. Only in the jar, when you're pressuring them, you have the opportunity to flavor them in the jar, which I think is a great advantage. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, that you would consider giving it a like and sharing our video, and consider subscribing to our channel. We would really appreciate that. And we'll see you again soon with something new. Take care.